WhiskyJason here, whiskey from the viewpoint of an American over here in Germany, tasting often rare and exotic whiskeys. Today I have something from Oxford. The Oxford Artisan Distillery, T-O-A-D, Toad. Oxford Rye Whisky. Whiskey without the E, very nice. Easy Ryder with the Y, Ryder, R-Y-D-E-R, excellent. Heritage Grains, 50%, 2017 harvest, batch number 7. Very, very nice. Whiskybase number 213247. Now over here in Germany, I'm paying about €52.90 for this. I have seen it on sale for $49.90. So the Oxford Artisan Distillery is something that's still difficult for me to wrap my head around. All right, so we can start off with a guy named here. So his name is John Letts. John Letts actually started in 1994 to plant. I'm just going to read this. In 1994, John discovered over 200 almost perfectly preserved examples of traditional wheat and rye land races in the bottom layers of thatched buildings dated from the late medieval period, 1375 to 1550 AD. His work showed that in spite of poor soils, these ancient crops grew to over 1.5 meters tall, and that if these fields had been manured, crops would have grown much taller and fallen over in wind, rain, and ruined the harvest. So this guy finds almost 200 preserved examples of traditional wheat and rye. And so he starts actually creating a seed bank. He goes to different seed banks, tries to actually have all these different these original grains before we had changed the landscape of the world, before we had so we can go back. So in the 1880s, Britain was flooded by cheap, high-protein gluten grain imported from Canada. It says hotter countries such as Canada and the Ukraine. And then in 1906, there was the revolution in grain production in England with Victor, a new varietal of wheat that needed artificial fertilizer. And so we went all the way up to 1960s and 70s, where we would actually kill the fields with pesticide, plant the fields then there, once again put some more pesticides on there so that everything else dies out. It was a monoculture. We had to add a lot of artificial fertilizer. Most of these were carbon-based, petroleum-based products in order to get one particular thing. And there, he actually, I'm terrible with his name here. So, John, let's just call him John here. John Lett, he actually has started over the last 15 years to grow all these types of more of a natural type of field where there is, of course, rye and there is a little bit of wheat. They even said there might be a little bit of thistle in here. I don't know if I want thistle. All right, so he's been working with these heritage grains now since 1994. Then along comes a guy. His name is here, Tom Nicholson. He was a former music Mongol. I seen a video of him. Don't recognize him, sorry, Tom. And he wanted to build a distillery. And so they actually contracted people in in England to actually hammer out and build a nice little still, 2,200 liters. They named it Nautilus. There's a smaller still, they call it Nemo, 2,000 leagues under the sea, 20,000 leagues under the sea. They have this column still, which has 40 some plates, I think 42 plates. 20 on the one side, 20 on the other side, that they can actually make the their neutral grain spirit on there, grain neutral spirit, SGNS, and for their gins and so on. And they're starting distilling in 2017. So 2017, they started distilling. They talked with John. Hey, give me some of your nice grains. Bam, they put that into the cask. And we now have this basically almost 5 years later. Now, the interesting thing about this distillery is transparency. They love transparency. And I'm going to bore you for the next 2 minutes with all the barrels that were used to actually make this whiskey, because we have 8 American oak barrels and 1 purple Moscatel cask from Portugal. So we have cask number 23, and what I think is very, very interesting is it was a heavy char, 3 years and 10 months now of age. So not yet 5. 2017, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. So they did disgorge this sometime, or maybe it was in 2017. Oh, the grain was harvested 2017. All right, so that's the important part here. 2017 harvest. By the time it is actually malted and milled, it's 2018. Now we have our 4 years, and then that makes it 3 years and 10 months make sense. Sorry about my little brain fart there. So they have a 130 liter cask, which is somewhat small, but basically exactly the right size for a 2,200 liter pot still. If you run it twice, you're going to get about 330 liters of alcohol. So they put in the cask at 59%, got out 59.5%. So it actually went up like it does in Kentucky in the higher rows of the rickhouse, at least in that case. So the cask number 24, same thing, 3 years, 10 months, heavy char, 130 liters, and it came out at 57.5. Even though it went in at 59, so it went down. So that either means that the casks were very, very different. Don't think so. Or maybe the location of the warehouses was different. That influenced the amount of angel share and so on. I don't know. So then we have 2 other casks, 37 and 39. They were both 225 liters. They were both, no, that's not right. The one was filled at 59%. The other one's filled at 57.3%. So they're actually playing around a little bit with the ABV to see what happens. Both of these are basically American standard barrel, 225 liters. So, and then the 59.0 comes out at 60.7. And the 57.3 comes out at 57.1. So not much difference. And then we have cask number 40 and 41. Both of these are char 1. Both of these are 3 years and 5 months. Both of these enter the cask at 60%. And the one came out at 57.5, the other 57.9%. So, and then we have the cask number 55. 3 years, 4 months, 59%, 228 liters. Okay. And we have the char, the cask number 59. That was also 226 liters. Both of these were 59%. And they both came out a little bit lower, 158.2, 158.6. So they actually write down the amount of liters that we put in, 226, and they took out 210. So what did they do? They actually had a other cask that was an American oak heavy char, put it in there for 2 years, 225 liters of alcohol in there at 59%, and they took it out with only 210, but then 58.2, and put it into this purple Moscatel Portugal red wine cask, and left it in there for another year and a month. So 3 years and 1 month in total. In order to be called whiskey over here in Europe, we needed to have 3 years of age. So 3 years, 1 month is the absolute minimum. All right, so it went into the cask, as we know, 58.2, and it came out at 56.5. So we actually lost quite a lot of liquid there, 1.7 liters, 1.7%, but we only lost 2 liters of alcohol by doing that. So 2 liters of 200 is 1% of the total volume. But yet we lost more than 1% of the alcohol volume. That's kind of interesting. I don't really know what went on there. That's something I'm going to have to think about. All right, so what am I going to do? Now this distillery is absolutely interesting. Transparency, great. Privately owned, great. Doing interesting, sustainable things. So it says here, sustainably farmed. So there's a video online. This guy actually goes up there and visits them. I've seen farms that are more organized than that distillery. It was not the most impressive video of the health and safety as well as the cleanliness of the distillery overall, in my personal opinion. All right, but that's okay. But they're doing interesting things. I don't think they're going to become the next big thing in the world, but I'm going to continue to try and look and follow the Oxford Artisan Distillery. Now, my comparison whiskey here is something of a, I'm going to call it the word shocker. Why is it a shocker? Because I paid 129 euros for this 0.5 liter bottle from that boutique whiskey company. It's a single grain English whiskey distilled at the Oxford Artisan Distillery. It is 3 years of age. It is bottle number 96 of 189, and it is batch 1. This was part of the Home Nation series. So you can actually see them here. There's a video of the class combine. There's a video of I think it's actually Peter harvesting with a sickle. Everything's on the label here. There's a scarecrow. You got some guys. You got a guy with a magnifying glass and so on, looking at the corn. So it's actually a very, very nice label. So if you want to know the Whiskybase number, this is going to be 189330. It's 129 or 139, or hard to find whiskeys has it at the moment, for 159 pounds in the UK. Wow. All right, so I'm going to compare these two, both 50%, both from the same distillery. Here I have the breakdown of casks. Here I have a single cask. I don't even know what the single cask was, to be honest. It just says here bottling series. So every hand illustrated label has a story to tell. Da 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 da. Nope, no information here on the label about the barrel. What a shame. So 50, 129, 0.5, 0.7, 50%, 50%, 3 years and 3 years. Now on the nose, this is different. That's the only way I can put it. If I did not know that this is whiskey, I would have thought it is a herbal type of liqueur, a Jägermeister type of whiskey. Now over in Germany, we have something called Kräuterlikör. So Kräuter, herbal liquor. So it's it's a herbal liquor where they sometimes put 37 different types of herbs together and create that. And that's what I'm getting a little bit. What I'm really getting is this Angelica. It's not really doing it for me, to be honest. All right, over here, this is darker, more caramel, and a tiny little bit more of licorice. I prefer the nose of this. Do I have official tasting notes someplace here? Yes, the aroma. I could have, according to the Oxford Artisan Distilling.com / Oxford -rye -whiskey -easy -Ryder with Y. Baked apples, pineapple, complement herbal and refreshing spices with notes of dolce de leche, sweet milk, torched creme brulee, croissant, cacao butter, white chocolate, and bog butter. I don't know what bog butter is. Does anyone else out there? Let's Google bog butter real quick. Bog butter is an ancient waxy substance found buried in peat bogs, particularly in Ireland and Scotland. Likely an old method of making and preserving butter. Some tested lumps of bog butter were made of dairy, while others were meat-based. No wonder I've never had bog butter. I mean, that takes a lot of guts to write down bog butter as a taste, as an aroma note. Yeah, I mean, all right. Cheers. Now, if you're looking for something like a typical Pikesville, like a typical Sagamore, like a typical Frontier Bullet Rye Whiskey, this is not going to be it. There's a lot more of that. I'm going to use the word Jägermeister thrown in there. There's a lot more of that herbalness. The official tasting note says hints of custard. No. Biscuit. I don't know what type. Hazelnut. Maybe. Biscotti. And white chocolate. Wow. So for those of you whose Italian is not as good as mine is, biscotti, also known as contucci, are Italian almond biscuits that originated from the Tuscany town of Prato. They're twice baked, oblong-shaped, dry, crunchy, and may be dipped in a drink. There is some oak going on here too, as well. I personally think that with these batches of rye, the Oxford Artisan Distilling Company might have a little bit of a problem. Why? Because they are almost maturing too fast. You have a spirit that's not, it's still a little bit sparkly in my mouth. That alcohol really is there. It's a tad bit young. It's doable, but it's a tad bit young. And yet the that oak moment is very, very present already. And my thing is this needs more time in the barrel, but it doesn't need more barrel. So how do we do that? But now we can't go back and turn back the clock. So we could have been using, for example, here not freshly charred or heavily charred, but rather maybe first fill bourbon casks. That would be something that might actually help their rye in the future and give a nice little finish in those other casks. The other thing is, of course, where do we have these barrels to mature? Now in Scotland, they use a lot of, not always, but they sometimes often, that's good, Jason, dunnage warehouses where the temperature is fairly constant. Now in England, Oxford, the temperature there is more heat. There's further south, there's a little bit more of a variation. It's not Kentucky, but there is a lot more variation than up in the north in Scotland. And so maybe we need to have a little bit more of less of a temperature variations there. This gets an A- for innovation. I thoroughly love what they're doing there. This gets a C- for taste. I'm not really digging this whiskey. My German video, I diluted down to 40%. Did get a tad bit better, but still, it's very concentrated though. Those herbal moment there. And I don't think I like the Angelica root, and I'm getting almost like too much of that on there. Over here, on the other hand, this is a single cask, very well chosen. The alcohol is much, much better refined. There is a licorice note going on here instead. So I do prefer this whiskey in the taste, but the price is just astronomically, prohibitively high. 129 euros for 0.5 liters. Come on. I bought 5 or 6 bottles of this home nation series to do a little of a tasting with these different bottles, and hardly anyone wanted to. It was like English whiskey, no thank you. But I said, hey, we have Coswolds. It's great stuff. Well, there was one Coswolds that was good. And the rest of the stuff was, well, we're learning. And English whiskey is learning. And I think English whiskey is going to be a powerhouse of whiskey innovation. Oh, we have Bimber. I forgot. Bimber. Hey. Bimber wasn't in that tasting though. They didn't have it. I don't think Bimber has any had that boutique whiskey company, have they? Or it's been so far down the line that I don't remember. I didn't ever see a bottle. I think English whiskey has a great, bright future. I think Oxford Artisanal Whiskey Company has a distillery, has a great, bright future. they're testing, they're experimenting, they're trying, they are making mistakes, and I think that is wonderful. And I'm really looking forward to trying some of their great whiskeys and maybe even trying some of their mistakes. This is not a mistake. The master distiller here, the head of whiskey, his name is Charlie Eklund. He, according to the blog post from the 18th of October 2022, he likes this the best so far. And if that's the best so far, that's great. Is there room for improvement? Is there still room to get better? Yeah. And that balance of the herbalness and the balance of the young alcohol and the balance of the wood is something they're going to have to work out in the future and figure this out. Smaller cask, larger cask, different placing areas, different types of casks, whatever is needed there. That wood moment is dominant, and it should not be more, in my opinion. But we'll see what happens. All right, thank you very much for watching. D plus for value for money. C minus taste, D plus, A minus for innovation. I like what they're doing. Question of the day. What English distillery are you watching? Is it Coswolds? Is it Bimber? Is it Oxford? Is it any of the other ones? The English Whiskey Company? And. I think there's 40 plus whiskey distilleries in England at the moment. And the other question is, outside of North America, what other rye whiskeys have you enjoyed? So I've enjoyed Stork from Germany, very, very nice. I have not enjoyed our Bicky from Scotland yet. I'm going to have to try the second batch when it comes out and see if it's getting better. But I will continue trying rye whiskeys, not only from North America, Canada, and America, but also from Europe and maybe any place else in the world, because I love the flavor of rye. WhiskyJason here. See you soon. Thank you very much for liking, subscribing, telling others, and sharing. All the best. Bye-bye.